All right, all right, all right. Welcome, all explorers. Sorry, I had my mute on. Don't worry if you can find your Kahoot ID. I put that in the chat box if you still need that. But welcome to today's Geo Show. It is titled Buddhism, a brief look. Just a brief look. Today's all-free virtual field trip is brought to you by flatclass.club. Teachers, are you looking for brand new ways to knock down your classroom walls and bring the world into your classroom? Well, check out the Flat Class podcast over at flatclass.club. Today is an interactive show, and you can interact many ways with GeoShow. One of those is with Twitter. We love seeing your questions, comments, and pictures over at hashtag GeoShow if you would like to share them. And feel free to use it as a back channel. So if you do have devices and you are a one-to-one school, feel free to send all of your questions there, and I can get to them even after the show if we don't address them here. We also have an intro Geo quiz today, powered by Kahoot. So pay attention, explorers, because the winner of today's Geo quiz will get a postcard from me. I'm your host, GeoB, from the Learn Around the World studio. So pay attention, you may get a postcard from me. We're going to go ahead and test out our Kahoot. Technology is great when it works, so let's see if it's working right now. Go ahead and grab your devices if you're playing along with the Kahoot today. Don't worry if you're not logged in quite yet. Our first question is only a survey question. It is a survey question, so it is not worth points. Here we go. Okay, where in the world did Buddhism come from? Where did Buddhism come from? Was it red, China, blue, India, yellow, Germany, or green, Japan? All right, most of you are right on top of that one. So really, most likely, it's either India or current day Tibet, but in ancient India, that was all same in ancient India. So yeah, so we just say India. So Buddhism did originate in India. Also, go ahead and send in, use your chat or Twitter. Let me know where you're watching from, what grade you're in, and I would love to give your classrooms a shout out live right here on the Geo Show. So let's find out, where are we going today? Because Geo Show is a geography-based show, and that means location matters. Well, we're going to go to a few different countries today. What? All from the comfort of your own classrooms? That's right. We're going to visit the country of South Korea today. We're going to visit the country of Thailand today. And we also are going to visit the country of Indonesia today. So all three of these countries, we'll see some past, present, some of the past and present of Buddhist temples, temple stays, and just to have a general discussion about Buddhism. So as we just learned, it originated in East India, ancient India. And so Buddha, the founder of the religion, if you want to call it that, we'll get more into that as the show goes along, lived anywhere between the year or the centuries 4th to 6th century BC. So anywhere, scholars are kind of they don't quite have the exact dates pinned down, but anywhere between, most people think between the years the 4th and 6th centuries BC. Is where it all started. But it's mostly spread through East Asia and Southeast Asia today, and of course India as well. All right, so as we look at it, let's go ahead and start introducing Buddhism today. So as we look at what most people affiliate themselves, what religions they affiliate themselves with across the world, most people on the planet, so 55% of the people identify with one of the Abrahamic religions. So if you're not familiar, so these are the religions of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. So these three religions all stem from the same God, and they are called the Abrahamic religions. The next biggest religion, 15% of the world's population, is Hindu, also originates from the country of India. And Buddhism, about 7%, about 7%. So it's still quite big. 16% of people in the world don't claim a religion, and about 6% are folk religions and others. Okay, so we are going to talk about Buddhism today. Before we get into it, I do want to just say part of our scope for today's virtual field trip is to just see a few different ways of how Buddhism influences the culture. What are some different styles of the religion throughout Asia? I just went to these locations to share with you. I am not the world's most expert with the religion of Buddhism. So any kind of deep questions, I can tell you what I think, what I have learned from talking to monks and other people, but you'll have to take those inquiries and questions further into your studies. All right, so we do want to give a shout out to Mrs. Scopa's third graders. They are here from Golden Valley, Minnesota. Welcome to the show, guys. So we're going to jump right into it, and we are going to virtually participate in a temple stay. So what is that? Well, one of the common activities that you can do when you visit the country of South Korea is you can participate in a temple stay. So Korean, there are many different, just like other religions. For example, if you're from the US, most people are familiar with the Christian religion. There's many different styles. So there's Catholics, there are Baptists, Protestants, Methodists, all kinds of different ways of practicing that major religion. Same thing with Buddhism. So there's different ways to practice Buddhism. And the Far East, so when we think about countries like Japan and Korea and even China, they practice a style of Buddhism. Most people in the US know it as Zen Buddhism. So that's what they call it in Japan. And in Korea, it's called Sun Buddhism, but very similar to Zen Buddhism. So we're going to see what it's like to spend a day at a temple in South Korea. And we are going to participate in a temple stay. And again, we are going to the country of South Korea, so up here. And again, so much of this area of the world practices Zen Buddhism, and of the people that practice Buddhism. And we are going to go to Golgusa Temple in South Korea. And what's unique about this temple is they practice something called Sunmudo. So Sunmudo is a Korean Zen Buddhist martial arts. So you may be familiar, probably the most famous of Buddhist temples or monks that practice martial arts are the Shaolin monks in China. Well, this is similar to that, but their martial art is called Sunmudo, and it's not Kung Fu. And what does that look like when professionals practice it or when they perform it? Well, this is what it looks like. All right, so as I show one of these moves in slow-mo, we can check out the talent or the skill it takes to perform these moves is very high amount of skill. And people often ask, I get a lot of questions, well, why do they practice martial arts? Most people kind of relate Buddhism with a very peaceful kind of living. Well, it's more about the art of moving. And you heard me say in that video clip something about meditation. And so meditation is there's many styles of meditation. Most people, you may be familiar of seeing videos, pictures, or statues of someone sitting cross-legged on the ground with their eyes closed, their hands placed in front of them. And this is a form of what we call sitting meditation. But there are many styles of meditation. There's walking meditation, standing meditation, lying meditation, where you lie down. And then there are dynamic forms of meditation. So these would be things while you're moving. So you can think about yoga as a form of meditation. You are meditating in movement. Same thing with martial arts. So as you saw from some of their spectacular moves that they were performing, many of them were yoga-like on the ground with their stretching, and then many of them were the actual movements. So they're really concentrating on their breathing, and the whole point of meditation, especially with Zen-style Buddhism that we find in Eastern Asia, China, Korea, Japan, is being in the moments. So you're really focusing on your breathing and just being in the now is what they say. And so that just gives you a little bit of background of meditation, why they would even practice a martial art. Now, I will say this is just at this one temple in Korea. Most other places are not doing martial arts. This is just at this one location. It just appealed to me because I personally thought it was cool. All right, so what does it look like when you go there and do a temple stay? It's not as glamorous. So you see people falling all over the place, and let's check out some people learning how to do some Sun Woo-Do. All right, so now we're going to virtually walk you through a temple stay, and so I just added it to the chat box. You're looking for the Kahoot code. So when you go to a temple stay, first thing they're going to do is they're going to give you a set of clothing, and you can wear other clothing, but most people take part of the experience, as I did, and so their clothing is loose fitting, which really helps out with Sun Woo-Do. And the first thing you do is you do an orientation with one of the monks. And what they do during this orientation is they teach you proper ways to bow and what to do and what to expect during your temple stay. Now, you can do a temple stay from 1 day to 1 week, and even at months. So there are people that I met that were at this temple for 2 months, 3 months at a time. And now, specifically with this one, a lot of them were doing that mainly for the training, but there are different reasons too. And so one thing I want to address before we go further, so as you look at this today and look at the different bowing and some of the kneeling in front of Buddha or each other, I will go ahead and stop to say that many people kind of get kind of scared of bowing and things like this. So I really encourage you, if you go to Asia, don't be afraid to bow to someone if you practice a different religion, because it's more like a handshake. You're not bowing to a god. What you're doing is you're paying respect. It's how they show respect in Asia. So that can be from just a simple half bow, usually to a person, or a full down to your knees, full out bow, which we'll see later on, to Buddha. And Buddha, we want to go ahead and point out as well, Buddha is not a god. Buddha means teacher. And so the Buddha, the first Buddha, there's been many Buddhas, so there's been many teachers, higher up teachers throughout the practice over the years. But the very first Buddha is generally the one you see the statue of. And I like to explain this because we're going to see this throughout some of the experiences. For example, my favorite sport is basketball. And so as a young child, I had a poster of Michael Jordan on my wall. Maybe you have Steph Curry today. So you look at that poster and you say, hey, Steph Curry shoots 500 three-pointers a day. I need to shoot 600 three-pointers if I want to be like him. So when I was young, if I want to be like Mike, I need to practice every day to be like Mike. This is more like better a way of thinking of what Buddhist people are doing when they look at their statues of Buddha. It's more like, hey, this is my teacher. He lived like this is the way I want to live life. And so I'm looking at him for inspiration. I'm not bowing to a god. So I just want to point that out because some people get confused by that if you're not familiar with the practice of Buddhism that we're learning or just learning today about the different cultures. So morning chanting. So you get really early starts at temple stays. You get up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and you need to be at morning chants by 4:30. And chants are like mantras, if you've ever heard of that. So I'll turn the volume up, and you can hear people when they are singing along in the chants. It kind of hums from the inside. Kind of makes your body vibrate. And again, the chanting is a form of meditation. So the first thing is there's about 30 minutes of chants, and the chants go on for a while. So you go from sitting to standing to bowing. You can see women sit on the left, men sit on the right. The monks at the temple sits up front. After 30 minutes of chanting, you do 30 minutes of quiet sitting meditation. Then you generally do some walking meditation after that around the property. And at 6 a.m., there's breakfast at the temple. And so again, we'll point out here that men and women are kept separated where they stay. And so men on the right and women on the left. So when they eat, when they're doing meditation, they're always kept separated. And then your next thing on your list every day at Golgusa Temple is Sunmudo training. Now, at other temple stays and other places around Korea, you would either do community work or more meditation. But here, they're doing Sunmudo training at this particular temple. As we can see, it's not as glamorous when novices or beginners try to do some of these moves, but it's very tiring. And hope you're not all exhausted yet because we're about to do 108 bows. So at 10 a.m. every morning, they do 108 bows. So what is that all about? Well, there are, according to some of the writings and practitioners of Buddhism, there's been identified as 108 different sufferings in life. And so that's the whole point of Buddhism, is trying to get around life suffering. So sickness, illness, pain, all these types of things. And every day the monks, they will do 108 bows. And these are full bows all the way to the ground. And I can tell you, it is tiring doing 108 bows back to back. So I won't make you watch all 108. At 10:30 is tea time. So tea is a common practice to do at temples and even the Korean culture in general. But this is a time where you can talk to the monks at the temple. You can ask them questions. They will ask you questions. And especially remember, we're in the East, we're in Korea. One of the popular forms of practicing Buddhism is not only the sitting meditation in Korea, but it's also monks challenging people with, they're like riddles. So they're kind of riddles in life. And you kind of talk over tea with the monks about them. At 11:30, there's lunchtime. So what kind of food do you eat while at the temple? Well, temple food in Korea is when all Buddhists are vegetarians, so there's no meat. So obviously, this is going to be different kinds of food. If you go to, say, Thailand, for example, it's is very Korean-based food, so lots of kimchi, if you know what kimchi is, to the right here. Different types of kimchi, rice, there's some mushrooms there, and different other kinds of, there's a soup in Korea. There's always a soup served with every meal, and some fresh fruit as well. In the afternoon, they alternate at 2 p.m. between sitting meditation and archery. So this is what that sitting meditation I was talking about. So a lot of people are very familiar with the sitting meditation. The sitting meditation has been kind of spread around the world. Many people do it today. Even people in other religions, there are Catholic priests that do practice sitting meditation. Remember, in Buddhist practice, you're not worshiping gods. It's all about how you live your life here in the now. Some people argue that it's more of a philosophy or a way of life. But it's very difficult. It's difficult to sit for 30 minutes or more at a time and try not to think about anything. If you're like I am, your mind runs all over the place. And then archery. And some people are confused. Like, why would you practice archery? Well, archery, to be a good archer, you really have to control your breathing. And just like the martial arts, it's a form of meditation to be a good archer. All right, and later on in the afternoon, everyone participates in community work, and this applies to everyone, all monks, no matter what how long you've been a monk, or even if you're just there visiting the temple. Everyone is involved in community work every day, and when the weather's nice, that can be gardening, and they make it a little more interesting and fun for people doing temple stays. You can see races while dusting the floors here. And 5 p.m. is dinner. We already showed meals a couple times. And again, just like you do at 4:30 in the morning, you do another round of evening chants and meditation. You can kind of hear some of those meditation chants there. And again, you can see women go on the left side, men on the right side. There's only one woman at this session. And then there is an evening session of training. Again, Sambudo training requires a lot of balance and focus and flexibility, and it's very, very difficult. And then there's lights out at 10 p.m. and you definitely should get a good night's sleep because you're getting up at 4 a.m. the next morning as well. All right, so just a reminder for our classrooms, go ahead and make sure you get your questions sent in early and often, and we'll get to them during our in-between content times. So we have a question coming in. Why are men and women separated? And traditionally in Buddhism, and it used to be women weren't allowed to be monks. It used to be that women weren't allowed in the temples. That has changed over the years. Now there are temples that, and in Korea specifically, I know for sure, there are temples that are all women monks. But even when they are together at some places, for example, at this temple, women were not allowed to be the monks, but they were allowed to be lay people. They were allowed to be at the temple, but they're always separated. And that just goes back, I think it's more of just a traditional, this is only my personal opinion on this, but I believe it's just throughout the history, cultures all around the world, women weren't allowed to be at the same level as men. And I just think that that's a worldwide kind of thing that's just kind of been kept in the traditions. But again, that's just my observational opinion there. And during Sun Moon Do, it looked like some people had symbols in their hands. So yeah, so those were actually a weapon. And in some of the original Sun Moon Do training, um, like Shaolin monks, if you've ever seen their training, there is weapon work as well. So there's weapon work, and then there's work without weapons. Two different kind of skill sets. And yeah, and so Korea has a very Sun Moon Do itself has a very interesting history in Korea, because Korea was um, forcibly taken over by Japan in the early 1900s before World War II, and they didn't allow them to train. And so the art almost died out, and then they resurrected it later on in Korea. So yeah, so it has a very unique history in itself. Great questions coming in there. And can kids do this, or how old do you have to be to do a temple stay? Yeah, so there were kids there when we were there, for sure. And so they have summer camps at this temple. So yeah, so lots of there's plenty of kid opportunities to do things at temples, and really noticed in Thailand, for example, where they had schools and so forth. And how long do people usually stay at temples? Coming from Mrs. Levy's classroom, or temple stays. And most people do it probably for a weekend, I would say, but they recommend to do it a week to get a really good idea or experience to see what life is like for monks and people that live at temples. But again, there are people that, specifically at this temple, is a little bit different, because there are people that go that aren't trying to become monks, but they're trying to become trained in Sun Mu Do. So I met people that had been there a year. If you saw the guy that had the symbols, this was a gentleman from France, and he had been studying to go back and open up a practice back in France. So yeah, so lots of different things there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and keep sending those questions in. We'll keep coming back to them as we go throughout the show, but we're going to go ahead and look at some of our other things we found through our investigation of Buddhism throughout the world and throughout Asia. And one of those is celebration, so a different form of celebration. So this is really, really unique. Let's stay in Korea for right now, and we're going to look at the Lotus Parade. The Lotus Parade in South Korea, which this year, interestingly enough, happens on May 3rd. Who knows what day it is right now? May 3rd. And who knows what time it is in Korea right now? Well, it's nighttime, and the parade may be over right now, but just a few hours ago, this parade was going on in Korea. Remember, they come before us, so right now, actually, it's probably there in the future. So there's May 4th, I think, right now in Korea. But so what is the celebration of the Lotus Parade, Lotus Lantern Parade? And it is for Buddha's birthday. And in South Korea, they celebrate Buddha's birthday on May 3rd. Well, May 3rd this year. It falls on a different day every year, because they go by the lunar calendar. And so we're going to see a few different communities of Buddhist monks walking through the parade. They make these giant, really cool lanterns that they march through the streets, and we'll get to see some of those, and let's check it out. So a couple of things you'll notice now is throughout Asia, Buddhist monks have different kinds of robes. And in Korea, they wear gray robes. And that's because traditionally when they made their robes, the dye they used, they made from ash out of fires. Where in other parts of Asia, like Thailand, for example, they have bright orange robes that are made from the dye from flowers that they made. So these aren't robes. The women are wearing these are called hanboks, and those are traditional Korean dresses. They're quite beautiful. Now you see everyone carrying these hand lanterns, so it's called the Lotus Lantern Parade. And so what you'll see very commonly throughout Korea during Buddha's birthday is all the temples is one of the ways they decorate is with lanterns. And don't worry, they all had electric candles in them and not actual burning candles. So it's a little bit safer, the ones that they were carrying around today. There are some traditional Korean music. So this is not Buddhist per se, but it is part of the parade itself. So Buddhism has a lot of history in Korea. Today, about 25% of Korea is Buddhist. About the other 25% or so is Christian, and about 50% don't identify with a religion. All right, we see a large dragon lantern coming through, and there are a different number of very large lanterns when they start coming through once it gets dark. This one says, "I love Buddha" on it. We can see this lady, and from the name of the festival, the lotus flower, there's a lotus lantern there. Lots of really unique hand lanterns. All right, these guys jumping and spinning around, and we'll take a look at some of these larger lanterns, which are quite impressive. And here's one of an elephant. So this kind of goes back to the origins of Buddhism and Buddha. For example, Buddha was from India, and the Asian elephants was common in India. So obviously a huge part of the Indian culture. And we see Buddha on the back of an elephant here. So there were no elephants in Korea. Here at Learn Around the World, I love this lantern. And we'll go just to show a couple more. My favorite one was probably this. I love dragons, so I like this big dragon lantern. And this is the Lotus Lantern Parade that happened again just today in South Korea in celebration of Buddha's birthday. See, we have some other questions coming in here. We'll get to as many as we can. How many people visit this temple per year? I don't know how many people visit Golgusa Temple. But many people, one of the biggest activities to do when you visit Korea, if anyone is interested in temple food, I know there were some questions about, let's see, why do they have to be vegetarian? And so I asked a monk this, and one of the things, because if you heard me speak earlier, I said that in Buddhism, Buddha said when asked about gods and so forth, he said there's no need for all that. Buddhism is about the here and the now. So it's like that's beyond us. And so there's really no gods in Buddhism. So like they believe in a oneness, and their oneness is in everything. So at least when Eastern, like Zen Buddhism. So what that means is that you are a part of the tree, you're a part of the rock is a part of you. Everything on earth is one, and you are a small part of this larger one. And it's the way that it's explained a lot. And so I had the question, well, I originally thought that maybe they didn't eat animals because just like when you bow to Buddha, you bow to yourself, you're bowing to the trees, to the animals. Maybe if you eat the animal, you're eating yourself. I don't know. And so that's what I asked the monk, and he's like, no, it's more about, it's just healthier. And that's how it was explained to me. So it's not really healthy. They don't believe it's healthy to eat meat. And it's just how and in moderation. Also, you see the monks, they shave their heads. They wear very simple clothing. It's not about They don't really buy things. It's really trying to live a simple life. If you're more interested in temple food, if you like Netflix and you like Chef's Table, the Netflix show, there's a really good episode, a new one about a South Korean temple food. It was really awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and check out a temple. Let's go ahead and let's leave Korea and go check out a different location in the world. And I really like this location. We're going to head to Thailand. Thailand is around 90% or so of the people practice Buddhism, so very, very high percentage. A little bit different style of Buddhism. And the temple we're going to visit here is located in southern Thailand, and this is called the Tiger Cave Temple. All right, so here we are in the cave. So there's two parts to this temple. One thing you'll notice is there's a lot more statues, and they make them out of gold in Thailand. So most of the statues that you find, there are some gold ones in Korea, but most of them are made out of wood or stone. It seems to be many of them in Thailand are made of gold. And they also, in Zen Buddhism, the Korean style, is they typically show Buddha sitting down and sitting meditation, like over here, which they still do in Thailand, but they also show the other forms of meditation in their statues as well. So they show standing meditation, walking meditation. We'll see some different ones as we go along. Okay, so this is called a stupa. So this is very common within Buddhist architecture, and it's a visual representation of the Buddhist life. So basically, you're starting out wide and you get to a very small point. So that represents enlightenment at the top. So you follow the path. The goal in Buddhism is to become enlightened. All right. So I started to talk a little bit about how these are Hindu gods. So Ganesh and some other Hindu gods are represented at this temple. And you may ask yourself, why would they have other gods at some of these temples? Which comes to another question that we have coming in from Mrs. Levi's classroom, which is Buddhism just a religion or a way of life? And I would say it depends on who you ask. And it depends on your definition of religion. If you define religion as there must be a God, a higher power that you worship, then many types of Buddhism is not considered a religion. But if you define religion as a set of rules that you don't necessarily need a God for, to you live, it has customs, there's tradition there, then yes, it most definitely is a religion. So it just depends on how you personally define. There's different ways to define religion. And so if you think there must be a God for it to be a religion that you worship, then no, it's not. It's kind of, you can think of it kind of like the Confucianism. So that's another way of life, which many people in Korea identify with. That is just a set of rules. There's no God in it. It's just a set of rules. It's a way to live a good life. And so some people define that as a religion. Other people don't. Because of that, Buddhism is often mixed with other religions. So especially throughout India and other parts of Southeast Asia, there's generally seems to be a mixing of Buddhism and Hinduism in many regards. So people practice Buddhism for how to live their life in their living life, in their current life, and some people follow different religions for to have a God. So it just depends on how you define that for yourself. We're going to go also. Think it's really neat to see a temple in Indonesia, which is the largest Buddhist temple in the world, called Borobudur. And I'm going to show you that really quickly now. And as we bring up our map and look at there we go. Bringing our map down here. So down in Indonesia on the island of Java and is Borobudur Temple. Now, really quick, just I want to mention that Indonesia as a country today is the largest Muslim country in the world. But when Borobudur was built in the 9th century, this was a Buddhist area of the world. And so a couple of things that you're going to see. Again, there's that vocabulary word, the stupa. We're going to see a couple stupas here and many statues of Buddha as well. So let's check it out as we zoom in to Java, the island of Java in central Java in Indonesia. This is Borobudur Temple. Now, there's no inside rooms. It's built. They built a hill, and then they built around the hill. So that's what we're going to look at as we zoom into it. We are going to see just how it's constructed. Don't worry, we're going to go down and actually look at the temple. But what's really nifty is the way this temple was built reflects the practice of Buddhism. So you've heard me say a couple of times before, talking about Buddha, and Buddha created something called the Dharma. And so the Dharma is just the rules. It's the way, they called it the path to enlightenment. So there's 8 paths, if you will, and if you follow these 8 paths, then you will reach enlightenment. And so this temple was built with 8 levels, as you see here. And the way this temple was designed is that you would walk into the temple on each level, and you walk around meditating the entire way. So you walk all around the first level, go up to level 2, walk all the way around level 2, go up to 3, and so forth until you get up to the very tip top. And at the tip top, you walk around 3 times, and we'll talk about that when we get up there. But this is the temple, and as we zoom into the very tip top, the different levels, we'll see there are many stupas, and inside of each stupa, up here on the top 3 levels, is a statue of Buddha, and one large stupa in the top center of the temple. So that's the layout of the temple, and let's go down and check it out. All right, so there we get to see some of those stupas. All right, there's Merapi volcano. All right, so what he did is he explained to us that the right behind it, so we said the original temple, this is the original temple, and there was only 8 levels, but it started to sink. So they actually, if you see these 2 larger walls behind us right here, they actually expanded it to keep it from sinking when they finished the temple. So much of the bottom layers, they unearthed this corner to show what the original corner foundation looked like. So you can see it's very large. Again, this is the largest Buddhist temple in the world. And again, it was built in the 9th century. It took about 80 years to build this. And we see there's lots of images on the side of each level. So they tell the story of either Buddha or the different paths for each level, and different stories throughout the teachings of Buddhism. So as you can see, built into the temple, there's many statues of Buddha. Originally, there were 504 statues. Today, there's only about 390 left, and only about 200 of them or so still have the heads on the statue. So there's a headless Buddha right there. They have fallen off over the years from either earthquakes or volcanoes nearby, and also people that have stolen them. They keep constant surveys on the temple. So we get to see a marking there, and there's some nails on the ground right by our feet. So they keep a constant look to make sure the temple is not sagging or sinking anywhere. And our guide told us at this point that back in between 1973 and 1983, for 10 years, they took this entire temple apart and they put a new drainage system inside. And we were laughing because we were like, if you look at the blocks there, this would be like the ultimate game of Tetris, to take this entire temple apart and put it back together. As we go up to the top, we'll go up to the top real quick to check it out. Obviously, very beautiful area in the world, and lots of those stupas that we see. And the top 3 levels, inside of each one of these large stupas, if we go in here, whoop, there we go. There's a statue of sitting Buddha inside of the stupa. And at the very top, there's a large stupa. And the way this temple was designed is at the top, you walk around it 3 times. And the number 3 is very important in the religion because that represents the Dharma, the teachings of Buddhism, Buddha, the teacher, and then I believe it's Sangha. Could be wrong on that. It's basically the community. So it's other people that are practicing this way of life as well. And so we're doing our 3 walks around. And that is Borobudur Temple, the largest Buddhist temple in the world. Again, a couple shots of it from the outside there, and lots of those headless Buddhist statues that we see all over the temple. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we'll answer in a couple more questions. We'll jump right into our Kahoot quiz as well. And let's see, get a couple of questions in here. Do they go to the temples every day? Every day. So there's different ways to practice, and you can kind of think of this in other religions where you think of priests. Think of the Catholic religion like the Pope, right? So when you get up to be a monk in a different religion, they do the same thing. So if you're at a very high level, if you're a monk, you're there, you live at the temple, you go there every day, you're doing all these practices you've dedicated your life to try to become enlightened. But if you're everyday person, then you're mainly practicing at home, and you'll go to the temples from time to time, but you're not going every single day. And let's see, we noticed there was a flower or sun symbol on the back of some of the professionals. What was the significance? I don't know the sun. If it was a flower, it's most likely a lotus flower, which is a very important symbol you see represented with like the Lotus Lantern Parade. And I don't know all of the stories with Buddhism, the early days of it, but I'm sure there are stories that where the lotus was very significant in some of the older stories within Buddhism. And what is the purpose of the very baggy pants in some Mudo? And part of that is just the movements. You see they kick and move all around. And when you are bowing and you're sitting cross-legged on the ground, you want to have loose clothing. If you're wearing tight jeans, there's no way in the world you could do sitting meditation for 30 minutes at a time. So wearing loose fitting clothing is very important for doing the movements that you have to do. Okay, we're going to jump right into and play our Geo quiz for the day. So hope you were paying attention. Explorers, if this is your first time on the Geo Show, remember you only have 10 seconds per question. Every question that comes starting in about 10 seconds will be worth points. So make sure you answer quickly and correctly, and the more points you will get, the winner today will get a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World Studios. So good luck, explorers. First question is coming up right about meow. Okay, Sammudo is a Korean Buddhist. Red, dance, blue, song, yellow, martial arts, or green, play. Red is a martial arts, All right, Sophia is in the lead, followed by Haley, followed by Antonio. Good luck, everyone. The Lotus Parade celebrates red, Buddha's birthday, blue, Buddha's death, or yellow, Buddha's enlightenment. All right, it is Buddha's birthday, and it was actually today. How cool was that? Haley takes the lead. Good job, Haley. The Tiger Cave Temple is located in which country? Is it red, South Korea, blue, Thailand, yellow, Indonesia, or green, Japan? All right, Sophia takes the lead. Good job, Sophia. Next question. Where in the world did Buddhism come from? Where did it originate? Did it originate in China, blue India, yellow Germany, or green Japan? All right, it was India. Great job, Sophia, still in the lead. Last question. When someone bows to a Buddha statue, are they bowing to a god? Red, true? Or they are bowing to a god. Red, true, blue, false. All right, false. They are not. They are bowing to everything, themselves, the trees, the sun, the stars, the earth, the planets, everything, and that it entails. And great job. Sophia is the winner of today's Geo Show. So if you are her teacher, make sure you send me your address, your school address, Brandon@learnaroundtheworld.com. Snail mail does not work without an address. You'd be surprised how many times I do not get one. All right, so I do want to, before we wrap it up and wrap up our recording, I do have time to answer some more questions, so send those right in if you have them, if you have time to stick around. I do want to close out before people run. If you have the chance one day, I just want to really stress the importance of no matter where you go in the world, no matter what religion you personally practice, religions all over the world are how people, music comes from them, they influence our clothing and different stuff. So don't be afraid, especially with Buddhism. It's not something that should really conflict with your religion. Just go and experience it, and just look at it as a cultural thing, and look at people, how they live in different parts of the world. And with that said, if you have any questions, feel free, send them right in. While they're coming in, we're going to wrap up our recording for anyone watching in the future. And we would just like to say a big old thank you to flatclass.club. Teachers, do you want to learn new ways to knock down your classroom walls and bring the world into your classroom? Well, check out the Flat Class podcast at flatclass.club. All right, explorers, I'm GOB. You've been watching the Geo Show, and until next time, keep exploring.